Day 5 of the Cold War. I ran into my broke boyfriend, sitting dead center among a crowd of rich kids.
What's this? Are you a slumdog billionaire? Addicted to acting?
The marriage alliance between the Rong Yinuo families will soon be put on the agenda, right? Still not breaking up?
I'm looking for an excuse. Just in time. You guys can help me brainstorm.
Only then did I realize that my broke boyfriend was actually the famous heir of the Rong group. I planned to give this relationship a decent ending. So, when Rong Ze spoke with a troubled look on his face,
My dad fell off the construction site. I don't want to waste your time anymore.
I replied calmly, okay, I agree to break up. After sending Rong Ze a long, conciliatory text, I pushed open the door to the next private room. Who would have thought that I would see a familiar face here? The recipient of my long text. At this very moment, he was leaning lazily on the sofa, exuding an innate air of nobility, and surrounding him was a group of genuine second-generation rich kids.
Hilarious. Just any random accessory has a much better texture than this piece, right?
Isn't that obvious? When has young Master Rong ever received a gift with such ordinary quality?
After a brief moment of daze, I quickly lowered my head and then realized that I was wearing a mask. Glancing out of the corner of my eye, the watch they were talking about was the employment gift I gave to Rong Ze last month. It cost me a full 3 months of my salary, which was also the reason why I came to this club to work part-time. Right in the middle of the sofa, Rong Ze took a leisurely sip of red wine.
It's the thought that counts. What the hell do you guys know?
Huh. You've really gotten addicted to playing the slum billionaire.
After graduation, the marriage alliance between the Rong Yinuo families will have to be put on the agenda, right? You still haven't broken up with her?
Rong Ze pondered for a moment, then shrugged.
I'm looking for an excuse. Perfect. You guys help me think of a reason.
Are you really planning to break up? Why so sudden? I didn't hear you mention it a few days ago.
Noah wants me to go back to hooching with her.
Rong Ze drained his glass of wine.
Oh, back to Huchang? Don't tell me she wants you to meet her parents? No wonder.
I clenched my fists. A few days ago, my aunt called and asked me to return to Huching. I guessed what my aunt wanted to say to me, so I asked Rong Ze if he could come back with me. His expression was a bit strange at the time, and he didn't say yes. After that, we had a brief argument over a trivial matter, and he left after receiving a phone call. He hasn't come home to this day, so that was the reason for his silent treatment.
That girl actually wants you to meet her parents? What wishful thinking.
I had met this woman before. One day last month, I got off work quite early, and Rong Ze picked me up on his electric scooter. Outside our low-rent apartment complex, she was sitting in an extremely flashy convertible, drawing a lot of attention. Rong Ze introduced her to me, saying she was his roommate's younger sister. Thinking she had business with Rong Ze, I greeted her and walked away on my own accord, leaving the two of them there. However, before I had walked very far, I heard him say with a hint of mockery,
You're really something. How can you stand living in a smelly place like this?
I looked back, vaguely sensing that Rong Ze, and he seemed very close.
Whatever else you can say about Liang Yinuo, she really is beautiful. She has that pure yet seductive first love face. Rong Ze, can you really bear to let her go? If she weren't beautiful, would young Master Rong choose not to live in the Rong estate and live with her in the slums for a year?
What are you thinking about? True.
What's so beautiful about her? Have none of you ever seen a woman before?
Yes. Our Miss in Shue is the most beautiful. What does Liang Yinuo have anyway? She's just got a slightly better figure than you. Slender and tall.
So what if she's good looking? She's just blindly trying to please others.
That's enough.
What? Am I wrong? Even if you pull me back, I'm still going to say it. A girl from a respectable family wouldn't live with someone without being married. She's just bent on using this relationship to climb the social ladder. You must never get into any unnecessary entanglements with her.
Don't worry. I have never approved of children born out of wedlock. My children will only be born of my wife. No one else is possible, and that includes Liang Yinuo.
Rong Ze's cold voice drifted into my ears. I looked at his cold, stern features, feeling a bit dazed. Once, my period was late. Could I be pregnant?
What is there to worry about? If you're pregnant, we'll have the baby. Your husband will support you.
Rong Ze had said decisively. The two of us had laughed and played on the sofa, discussing what our child would look like, whether it would be a boy or a girl, and whether they would look like their dad or mom. Then, we would kiss. At that moment, I had absolutely no doubt that I would marry the man in front of me, have children with him, and spend a happy, yet ordinary life together. And yet, Only a few short months later, it was this very same man whose cold voice was now echoing in my ears. At 10 p.m., I finished my shift at the club. To my surprise, I found Rong Ze already waiting for me at home. He had changed back into the t-shirt I bought him online, the one that cost 100 yuan for 3.
Why are you back so late?
Rong Ze came over
And wrapped his arms around me affectionately, as if nothing had happened between us. But I knew how incredibly proud and stubborn he was. If I hadn't sent that long, apologetic text message tonight to make peace, he wouldn't have come back so soon. His familiar scent enveloped me. He must have already showered, as there wasn't a trace of alcohol on him. I paused for a moment and replied, working overtime. Rong Ze was taken aback. He let go of me, his dark eyes gazing deeply into mine.
What's wrong? You don't seem very happy.
We had known each other for 2 years and lived together for nearly a year. We knew each other inside out. With just that simple exchange, he had already picked up on my low spirits. It's nothing. I'm just a little tired.
I'll go run a bath for you.
Good. After taking a shower and coming out, Rong Ze leaned in to kiss me. Perhaps because he was young. He was always full of energy and never grew tired of it. I thought of what his best friend had said.
If she weren't so beautiful, would young Master Rong choose not to live in Rongard and stay with him in the slums for a whole year?
On my way home, I had done some searching online. The Rong family's ancestral home is located in the prime downtown area of Haicheng, where land is worth its weight in gold. The price per square meter exceeds 400,000 yuan. So it turns out my boyfriend, whose daily allowance never exceeded 50 yuan, was actually the heir to the Rong group. Over the past year or so, how did he manage to live in this stuffy, cramped apartment where the monthly rent is less than 500 yuan? Was it really just because of me? Was he simply unable to let go of me?
What are you thinking about, babe?
My distraction quickly drew a protest from him. Rong Ze is 2 months younger than me.
Feed me, babe. Be gentler, babe.
Normally, I would find this very endearing, but today I was simply not in the mood. I'm not feeling very well.
Not feeling well?
I'm dizzy.
I'll take you to the hospital.
No need.
Be good.
I just bought you a graduation gift and paid the rent yesterday. I don't have any money left on me because he had joined a large company, and to prevent him from looking too shabby at work, I had bought him a whole new wardrobe. Suits, shirts, leather shoes, and a watch.
Rong Ze
Looked at me for a moment, sighed softly, and said,
Don't worry. I have money.
Where did you get the money? He had only graduated not long ago, and the salary from his last internship wasn't high either. I kept all the savings for both of us, giving him $50 of pocket money every week. Every single penny he had, I knew where it came from and where it went. He had absolutely no way to explain it to me.
I borrowed it from a friend.
Out of nowhere. Why would you borrow money from a friend? I looked at him, deliberately showing a bit of displeasure. There are still so many things we'll need money for in the future. Buying a house, getting married, having children. Which of those doesn't cost money? Don't be so spendthrift. Rong Ze's face changed slightly, a flash of impatience in his eyes.
Did you call me back, sis, just to tell me this?
Of course not. I wanted to tell you that I've already bought the tickets back to Huqing for the day after tomorrow. I bought yours too.
7 a.m.
Since you're not feeling well, sis, just sleep here by yourself. I'll sleep in the next room tonight.
I let out a sigh, lying back down on the bed. Although I could be certain that Rong Ze did like me a little, this tiny bit of affection was far from enough to support him marrying me and having children. Since that was the case, it was better not to waste each other's time anymore. Friday morning, I methodically packed my luggage to return to Huqing. Rong Ze watched coldly from the side, not until I had packed the luggage for both of us, and was about to ask him to go downstairs to hail a cab, did Rong Ze finally call out to me.
Yinuo, I have something to tell you.
I didn't expect the excuse his group of buddies came up with would actually be that his dad fell off a construction site. I don't want to waste any more of your time. This excuse was so incredibly lame that when Rong Ze spoke to me, his expression and tone were awkward to the extreme. What a dutiful son to his father.
I'm sorry. Making this decision actually makes me very sad too. My family's financial situation is just like this. I don't want to drag you down anymore.
Okay. I agree. Rong Ze's voice stopped abruptly. He suddenly looked up, staring at me in disbelief.
What did you say?
Actually, I also thought we weren't very compatible together. You are not in the wrong, and neither am I. The only wrong thing is that we are both too poor to give each other a better life. It's better to let each other go and find someone rich instead. Anyway, you're not bad looking, and neither am I. After we break up, finding someone with better financial conditions to marry shouldn't be too hard. Perhaps because I agreed too quickly without crying on the spot or begging him in tears not to break up. Rong Ze's face was now dark with anger.
Liang Yinuo, Are those your true feelings?
Of course they are. Since things have come to this, I plan to give this relationship a decent ending. But we had a great 2 years together, so there's no need to end things on a bad note. The silence in the air was somewhat eerie.
Since that's the case, then as you wish. This afternoon, I will move out.
Good. I opened the suitcase and took out his clothes that I had just packed inside. Then, remembering something, oh, by the way, the salary you used to keep with me, I'll calculate it in a bit, and then transfer it to you via WeChat. He stared at me without blinking, his gaze even sharper than before.
No need. Just consider it compensation from me.
Isn't your father in the hospital? Your family needs the money right now. I should still transfer it to you. Rong Ze's expression froze, and he was speechless for a long moment. My phone vibrated. The ride-hailing car I called had already arrived. As I was heading out the door, an exasperated voice came from behind me.
Liang Yinuo, you'd better not regret this in the future.
What a thing to say. Whether I regret it or not. Wasn't he still going to break up with me anyway? I had a rough idea of why my aunt wanted me to return to Shanghai. She had called me repeatedly asking me to come back, so I guessed it mostly had to do with my cousin's situation. Sure enough, my aunt began to sound me out.
Yinuo, didn't you say you had a boyfriend? Why didn't you bring him with you this time?
We broke up.
Broke up? For what reason?
Incompatible personalities, I guess. I made up a casual excuse. My aunt comforted me with a few words, then cleared her throat.
Yinuo, originally, I didn't want to bring this up, but since you've broken up with your boyfriend, I suppose there's no harm in mentioning it. After all, you're grown up now.
As I expected, my aunt wanted me to go on a blind date. At first, I assumed she wanted me to go on a blind date with my cousin's ex-fiance to see if we could still go through with the alliance between the two families. But to my surprise, this time my blind date was actually the youngest son of the Liu group. I was quite surprised. I didn't expect my uncle's business to have grown so large that he could actually arrange a marriage alliance with the Liu family. But would he even be interested in me? After all, I'm not my aunt's biological daughter. Then, my aunt hesitated for a moment and added some details. I finally understood what was going on. It turned out the young master of the Liu family had been in a car accident last year. His life was saved, but his legs were severely injured, and he still had to use a wheelchair. Although the Liu family is a top-tier wealthy family, the young master's legs are, after all, crippled. No matter how much the other prominent families wanted to curry favor with the Lius, they couldn't push their own daughters into a fire pit.
Of course. I'm just asking for your opinion. If you're not willing, then forget it. I just feel that this might actually be an opportunity.
Perhaps to an outsider, it would seem like my aunt was blinded by greed, trying to push me, her niece, into a fire pit. But I knew she wasn't, because she had started out the exact same way. My aunt was very beautiful, with a full forehead and delicate skin. She was the kind of stunning beauty with both exquisite features and bone structure. My aunt was 22, right after she graduated from college, when she married my uncle. My uncle was a full 15 years older than her and had already had 2 previous wives. However, his family was wealthy, owning 2 companies. Meanwhile, my grandfather's side of the family had gradually declined, and my grandparents favored boys over girls heavily, directing almost all resources toward their son. As the daughter, my aunt was the typical unloved child. She saw my uncle as a springboard to elevate her life, so she seized it without hesitation. After marrying my uncle, my aunt joined his company, starting from entry-level sales and steadily climbing her way up. She had a talent for business and knew how to play her cards. Within a few years, she expanded the group's business significantly, and her own net worth soared accordingly. Later, my uncle stepped back from the front lines, completely handing over the group's operations to my aunt. And my aunt successfully used her marriage to turn her life around, crossing into a different social class. Probably because she had her own success story as a precedent, she advised me to do the same. Without thinking too much about it, I agreed to my aunt's suggestion. After all, it was just a blind date. If I didn't like him, I could just go through the motions. Besides, he might not even be interested in me. I sat in the cafe for a while, seeing no sign of anyone at the entrance. I went to the restroom. When I came back, I noticed that across from my seat, there was now a wheelchair. Sitting in the wheelchair was a young man. He had sharp brow bones, striking features, and thin lips, an exceptionally handsome face.
He walked over.
Hello. Liu Jiayan looked up. His charming, deep, bedroom eyes sized me up slightly, and he let out a scoff.
To think the eldest Miss Liang would also come out on a blind date with a cripple.
I pinched the bridge of my nose. That's right. I actually knew this young master of the Liu family. We were schoolmates, and we had even been desk mates for a period of time. On a summer afternoon, Liu Jian, I like you. The result, of course, was a harsh rejection, and it was also in front of a crowd of onlookers who were eager for drama. I was quite thick-skinned back then, so I didn't feel embarrassed at all. An unattainable flower on a high peak. How could he be so easily plucked? If he were really that easy to pursue, then he wouldn't be Liu Jian. No one knew better than I how popular he was with girls. After my confession was rejected, it actually fired up my competitive spirit. From then on, I pursued him even harder. I pursued Liu Jian for 3 whole years. I asked around about his preferences in every way, sent him CDs he liked to listen to, baked cakes he liked to eat, and went to the basketball court he frequented to run into him. Even every time I went to the cafeteria for lunch, I would eagerly sit right next to him. Every weekend, under the pretext of studying, I would stay at his house for half the day. This resulted in the Liu family's old butler and all the maids becoming extremely familiar with me until one day, a transfer student joined our class. She also launched a fierce pursuit of Liu Jian. Every weekend, she copied me and went to the Liu house, begging Liu Jian to tutor her. When eating in the school cafeteria, I would sit on Liu Jian's left, and she would sit on his right. When he played basketball, I would bring Liu Jian a drink, and she would bring one too. It absolutely disgusted me. I didn't want to remain so passive anymore, so I asked Liu Jian who he would choose between me and the transfer student. Liu Jian had a cold look on his face.
I'm choosing neither of you. Both of you had better stay away from me.
At that moment, I realized he really had no feelings for me, and I really didn't want to keep competing with the transfer student like we were in a tournament. So I gave up on Liu Jian. After that day, I completely stopped paying attention to him. We became like strangers at school, not even exchanging a single word. Before long, my father's investments failed, and our family situation took a turn for the worse. My mother was worried all day long, often grieving in secret, and she kept talking about wanting to separate. A suffocating atmosphere enveloped the entire house, leaving me worried and anxious all day long, and my academic performance plummeted. On the midterm exam, I fell straight to the bottom of the class. That day, Liu Jian suddenly came to find me and spoke in a stiff tone.
Xiao Rui and I are just ordinary classmates. There's nothing else between us.
Xiao Rui was the transfer student in our class. I was completely bewildered by his words. How the two of you are. What does that have to do with me? Liu Jian froze for a moment, and his tone became a bit unnatural.
Come to my house this weekend. I'll help you tutor.
The sun must have risen from the west. Liu Jian actually took the initiative to offer to tutor me, but I was in no mood for it at all. No need. Seeing me refuse, Liu Jian's face darkened. He stared at me quietly for a long time, and finally turned and left. As the days went by, my state of mind grew worse and worse. My unit test scores slipped once again. My homeroom teacher had several heart-to-heart talks with me, urging me to pull myself together and put my mind back on my studies, but I just couldn't summon the energy. I gradually realized that the conflict between my parents was irreconcilable. They treated each other with great distance. Our once warm home gradually lost its former warmth. I was filled with helplessness, yet I didn't know who to confide in. Just then, Liu Jian came to find me again, his tone exceptionally serious and persistent.
Liang Yinuo, just like before, Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, come to my house and we'll study together.
Liu Jian, what on earth do you want? I don't need your help. Can you please stop bothering me? His face was full of shock, staring at me blankly. Having been the center of attention since childhood, he had never been spoken to like this before. For a moment, he also got angry. Just like that, the two of us fell into a cold war. Neither of us was willing to back down first. Misfortunes came one after another. My family's finances completely collapsed. My father fell ill from long-term overwork and eventually left us forever. Afterward, my mother remarried, and I moved to live with my aunt. Since then, we never saw each other again, until today, when the two of us ran into each other here. I rubbed my nose in slight embarrassment. How about I buy the coffee today? Consider it my apology to you. It was my fault.
For biting the hand that fed me and not recognizing your good intentions. No need. I don't take rewards for nothing. I have my pride too.
Well, it seems today's blind date is going to fail. I forced a smile. Have you been doing well all these years?
As you can see.
Oh my God, my big mouth. I felt a wave of regret in my heart. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Liu Jian's eyes remained calm and indifferent.
It has nothing to do with you.
Maybe I should just end this quickly. It's so awkward. After hesitating for a moment, I sent a WeChat message to a close friend asking them to call me in 20 minutes. The coffee I ordered had already arrived. Lu Jian was not the type of person who would take the initiative to start a conversation. To avoid an awkward silence, I racked my brain to come up with 2 more topics. 20 minutes later, my friend's call finally came through. I felt as if I had been granted a grand reprieve. Hanging up the phone, I said, "I'm so sorry. Something has come up today. Why don't we catch up another day?" Lu Jian stared at me intently.
You're leaving?
The emotions in his eyes were hard to read. My friend has some urgent business. As I prepared to stand up, the coffee cup on the table somehow tipped over. The half cup of coffee that remained unfinished spilled entirely across the tabletop and onto Lu Jian's shirt. I was startled. "Are you alright?" Back in our school days, I already knew that this young master was an extreme germaphobe. This was going to be trouble. Indeed. Lu Jian's brow furrowed deeply. He looked at the stain on his chest with immense disgust.
I need to shower and change my clothes. Could you give me a ride?
I froze for a moment. How did you get here earlier? Where is your driver?
He had to leave early for an urgent matter.
I didn't think too much of it at the moment, so I had no choice but to agree. Lu Jian didn't go back to the family mansion. Instead, he had me drive him to a hillside villa in the suburbs. There was no one in the villa, but everything was clean and tidy. I pushed Lu Jian to the bathroom on the first floor.
Could you help me get a change of clothes?
Where are they?
In the closet of the master bedroom on the 2nd floor.
I had no choice but to do as he asked. I went upstairs, grabbed a change of clothes from the closet in the master bedroom, and came back down. I saw Lu Jian unbuttoning his shirt cuffs. Thinking that he might have some difficulty, I asked, "Do you need some help?" Lu Jian paused slightly in his movements. He gently raised an eyebrow, his almond eyes glistening like deep pools under the light.
Sure.
I had only asked casually and didn't expect him to actually agree. I walked over in a daze and extended a hand. Lu Jian leaned on my arm and slowly stood up from the wheelchair. He could actually stand up. I was a bit surprised. After unbuttoning his cuffs, he proceeded to unbutton the front of his shirt. Because we were standing so close, my face grew warm and I felt a bit awkward. What should I do? But I quickly ran out of time to feel awkward because I noticed this young master actually had chest muscles, and his abs weren't bad either. I didn't expect that for someone who sat in a wheelchair every day, he would have such a great physique. I composed myself and handed over the bathrobe. I couldn't find a shirt. I only found this bathrobe. Lu Jian's gaze lingered on my face. Only then did I realize he seemed to have grown a lot taller. He was much taller than he was back in middle school, at least over 185 centimeters.
This works.
His crisp, cool voice sounded. Only then did I notice he had already completely taken off his shirt. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, well-defined muscles, and a beautiful V-line. I couldn't imagine how great his physique must have been. Before the car accident, I stood outside the door and scrolled through my phone for a while until I heard the sound of the shower inside stop. To be honest, I was a little worried he might fall. That would be no laughing matter. Fortunately, nothing went wrong. The door opened. Lu Jian was already sitting in his wheelchair, dressed in the bathrobe. His face was wet, and water was still dripping from the tips of his hair.
Could you hand me the hair dryer?
The noise of the hair dryer did a great job of masking the awkwardness between us. Halfway through drying his hair, I noticed Lu Jian was looking at me. What's wrong?
Nothing.
Walking into the living room, I noticed it was raining outside. Lu Jian took out his phone.
I'll have Uncle Wang drive you back.
Didn't you say he went home because he had something to do? Lu Jian paused for a moment, pursing his lips.
He should be back soon.
Even though we hadn't seen each other in years, Uncle Wang recognized me at first glance. He greeted me cheerfully.
Miss Nuo, you've grown so much.
Meeting an elder I hadn't seen in years, I was quite happy too. Uncle Wang, we haven't seen each other in so many years, but you haven't changed a bit.
Oh, not at all. Now that you kids have grown up, we've gotten old.
I exchanged a few pleasantries with Uncle Wang, just as I was about to head to the parking lot with him.
Liang Yinuo.
Yes, the living room fell silent for a moment. Uncle Wang suddenly realized what was happening.
Miss Nuo, I'll wait for you in the car.
Lu Jian pressed a button, and his wheelchair quickly rolled up to me.
I've been doing physical therapy lately.
This random statement left me standing there in a daze. What?
You saw it just now. I can already stand up on my own, the doctor says. If rehab goes well, my legs can recover in less than 2 years. I hope you'll think it over carefully and not make a decision so quickly.
I still didn't understand. Think what over? Lu Jian looked up at me.
The blind date.
Oh. So that's what he meant. I finally understood what he was getting at. No need to think it over. If you're willing, so am I. Lu Jian's reaction was a few beats too slow. He seemed incredulous. Of course.
No regrets. Then it's a deal.
When I got home that evening, my aunt was on the phone. I didn't know what the person on the other end said, but her expression was extremely surprised. After hanging up,
Xiaonuo, where did you go for your blind date today?
nowhere special, just a cafe.
The Liu family just called to ask if you two could get engaged before the end of the year.
Engaged before the end of the year? To be honest, I didn't expect it to happen so fast either. But on second thought, marrying young for generations seemed to be a tradition in the Liu family. Back when I was in 7th grade, I often went to the Liu family's old mansion to have Liu Jian tutor me. The first time I met Mrs. Liu, I finally understood the true meaning of the word breathtaking. She was incredibly beautiful, looking exactly like one of those stunning beauties from 1990s Hong Kong dramas, and she looked very, very young. At one point, I even thought she was Liu Jian's older sister. Only later did I find out that Mrs. Liu had married Liu Jian's father during her senior year of college, which was at age 21, when she married Liu Jian's father. It was also then that I learned the Liu family members all marry very young. After hearing this news, I was quite excited for a time. If that's the case for Liu Jian, I only have to wait 8 years to marry you. Are you surprised? Is it unexpected? Liu Jian rolled his eyes at me.
Could your skin get any thicker?
Hubby, Sarangi. I went with the flow. Thinking back on those childhood memories, I couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. This must be destiny. This aloof and unattainable young Master Liu was finally won over by me in the end.
This young Master Liu, even though a car accident last year left him with mobility issues in his legs, many of those who wanted to latch onto the Liu family and form a marriage alliance with them have failed to do so. To think that on your very first meeting, the Liu family actually proposed an engagement by the end of the year. It's truly rare.
I felt it was necessary to explain this matter. Well, Auntie, actually Liu Jian and I were classmates. Her eyes widened, caught completely off guard. Classmates in elementary and middle school. Auntie pondered for a moment, seemingly realizing something.
Did young Master Liu used to like you?
I shook my head. He never liked me. On the contrary, I liked him. I chased him for several years, but he never agreed.
Silly girl.
Auntie smiled. The two of us chatted for a while, and then Auntie added,
Since you plan to develop your career in Shanghai, shouldn't you resign from your current job?
Speaking of which,
I thought I really should find a time
to quit my job in Haicheng and terminate the lease on my old apartment. My aunt patted my head and sighed softly.
I asked you to come help at the company back when you graduated, but you stubborn girl just wouldn't listen. Now that you've had enough of experiencing life in the big city, isn't it time to come back to Shanghai?
My previous way of thinking was indeed quite naive, because I didn't want to owe my aunt too many favors. I believed I should go out and make my own way after graduation. After I met Rong Ze, I wanted to return even less. Looking back now, I was really being overly dramatic. I have family here in Shanghai, as well as close friends and classmates I grew up with. Yet I insisted on being stubborn, staying in an unfamiliar place, squeezing into a rented room that cost only a few hundred yuan, working multiple jobs just to support myself. And that boyfriend of mine, who pretended to be poor every single day. I got what I deserved.
Oh well.
Since I've already broken up with Rong Ze anyway, there is indeed nothing left in Haicheng for me to miss. I might as well move back. It only took me half a day to pack up most of my things in the rented apartment. And then I terminated the lease with the landlady. Before leaving Haicheng, I invited two of my close friends out for a farewell dinner. While waiting for a table outside the restaurant, a man walked past me and suddenly stopped in his tracks.
Liang Yinuo.
I stared at him in a daze for a moment and suddenly remembered this man was one of the guys in the private room that day. And he should also be one of Rong Ze's childhood friends.
Don't recognize me? I'm Rong Ze's roommate. We met at Haicheng University.
When he put it that way, it rang a bell. During Rong Ze's senior year, I went to his campus to look for him once, and this guy seemed to be one of the people there. I forced a polite, businesslike smile. Hello.
Are you here waiting for Rong Ze? He seems to have resigned.
Only then did I remember that the building across the street was indeed the company Rong Ze used to work for.
Should I give him a call? What's up with this guy hiding from his girlfriend all day?
This guy probably knew Rong Ze had broken up with me and was just waiting to watch the drama. I was a bit speechless, but also found it amusing. After a thought, I decided to play along with him. Really? No wonder I've been waiting for him here for days and haven't seen him at all. Inside the private room, it was noisy and chaotic. A bunch of bored guys were either playing cards or talking business. Only Rong Ze sat on the sofa, not participating in anything, glancing at his phone from time to time.
Rong Ze, how come I feel like you've been so distracted these past few days? You haven't fallen in love with that girl, have you?
Someone with sharp ears chimed in.
Fallen in love with which girl?
Who else could it be? Liang Yinuo, of course.
Seriously? Our young master Rong has indeed been a bit off lately, staring at his phone all day long. He's almost turning into Hanazawa Rui. Can you not be so ridiculous? If he's Hanazawa Rui, then I'm Dao Mingxi.
But seriously, young master Rong is quite heartless. If it were me, I wouldn't have the heart to break up with Liang Yinuo. That girl is so attractive. Her skin is so fair, and her legs are incredibly long. Most importantly, she is completely devoted to her boyfriend. She'd rather work 3 jobs a day herself just to buy her boyfriend watches and gear. Where else can you find a girlfriend like that?
What's the use of that? Even if she worked 10 jobs a day, she still wouldn't be able to marry into the Rong family.
That girl actually has some backbone. She didn't even make a scene when you broke up. Rong Ze, looks like your charm is slipping.
Her tactics are actually top tier, turning defense into offense. Deliberately giving you the cold shoulder for a while, just waiting for you guys to take the bait.
Jiang Onyu let out a cold sneer, full of confidence.
She's nothing more than waiting for the guy to back down first. Once the guy ignores her, she'll immediately come knocking on his door. Just watch.
No way, right? What kind of person do you take Liang Yinuo for?
Exactly.
Rong Ze felt inexplicably irritated. To make matters worse, these people were incredibly noisy, buzzing around him like a swarm of flies.
Are you guys done yet? No one will think you're mute if you keep your mouth shut.
Young Master Rong's temper was a bit volatile today. It was best not to provoke him.
His phone vibrated. The screen displayed Zhou Jingyu. Rong Ze felt a wave of inexplicable disappointment. After answering the call, he asked in an impatient tone, "What's up?"
Young Master Rong, didn't you tell Liang Yinuo about your resignation? That girl has been waiting at the entrance of your company for several days.
These words were like a gust of cold wind, making Rong Ze's heart shudder. He instantly sat up straight.
Are you saying Liang Yinuo?
What did I just say? Do you all believe me now? Rong Ze, if you go over there today, be prepared to be Liang Yinuo's ATM for the rest of your life. She'll have you wrapped around her finger, and you'll never be able to break free.
Jiang Anyu's words were like a sudden clap of thunder, striking him dumb on the spot. Rong Ze sat on the sofa, remaining silent for a long time. Ultimately, hardening his heart, he said in a cold voice,
Zhou Jingyu, it's already completely over between her and me. Tell her to stop looking for me. I won't see her again.
The man hung up the phone and looked at me with some guilt.
I'm sorry. That guy is actually quite heartless.
The diners who had just finished their meals walked out of the restaurant. It should be my turn soon. Since the show had already gone this far, I might as well finish the performance. I wiped away the non-existent tears from the corners of my eyes, sniffled again, and put on a heartbroken look.
Fin.
Please tell Rong Ze that I won't look for him ever again. The other man's eyes darkened deeply as he just stared at me, seeming to hesitate to speak, stopping himself repeatedly.
Miss Liang, how about we add each other on WeChat? If there's anything I can help with, you can also reach out to me.
No need. I don't want to see Rong Ze again in the future, and I don't want to see his close friends either. After returning to Shanghai, Lu Jiayan and I started dating, with marriage as our goal. Perhaps this is the benefit of blind dates. Both parties have clear intentions, without any beating around the bush. Seeing Mrs. Lu again, after many years, she seemed even more stunningly beautiful than before.
So the person on a blind date with our Ayan is actually you, Xiao Noa. No wonder this boy suddenly saw the light and took the initiative to bring up marriage.
Being so close to such a great beauty, my heart was pounding wildly. I never expected that one day my heart would race just because my future mother-in-law got too close to me. Auntie Lu, long time no see.
It's been years, and Xiao Noa has grown into such a great beauty.
I felt a bit self-conscious. There are probably very few women who would dare call themselves a great beauty in front of her.
Have you seen the house in Blue Moon Bay? How about using that as your marital home? Of course, if you don't like the English style, I can have a construction team remodel it.
I had known since a long time ago that the land in Blue Moon Bay was bought by Lu Jiayan's grandfather years ago, specifically to build a marital home for his grandson. It wasn't far from the Lu family's ancestral home, so after chatting with Auntie Lu, I dragged Lu Jiayan and drove straight to Blue Moon Bay. The house was even bigger than I had imagined. It was in a typical European style, surrounded by woods, a lake, a stable, and an orchard. It was practically love at first sight. It would be so awesome to live here. I eagerly asked Liu Jian, "Can I move in right now?" He looked up, gazing at me in surprise. His eyes, which were originally calm and indifferent, rippled with emotion because of those words. Even his voice seemed filled with a gentle warmth.
Of course you can.
Awesome. The very next morning, I moved in. Then,
Liu Jian moved in as well.
there probably wasn't the more efficient blind date couple than the two of us. Only 2 weeks after meeting, we had already entered the trial marriage phase. My life got back on track. Every morning, I accompanied Liu Jian to Lu's International for work, and in the afternoon, I went with him to the hospital for physical therapy. Liu Jian's rehabilitation went very smoothly. From barely being able to stand at the beginning, he could now walk independently for a distance of 2 to 3 meters, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Before our wedding, he should be able to ditch the wheelchair. After moving in together, I gradually began to realize that the Liu Jian of today and the Liu Jian of our childhood were indeed very different. As a child, he was cold and aloof. Whenever I forced a conversation against his will, he would just cast me aside and ignore me completely. However, the grown-up Liu Jian was indeed much more approachable. No matter how much I babbled, he never showed me even the slightest hint of impatience. Sometimes when I fell silent, he would actually find it unusual and proactively start a conversation with me. Even when I flirted with him, he didn't react like he did when we were kids, getting angry and rolling his eyes at me in exasperation. Returning from his physical therapy at the hospital that day, since he had sweated a lot, I joked with Liu Jian, "How about I go in and help you bathe?" Young Master Liu actually replied, without blushing or a racing heart.
Sure.
Such a smooth and unbothered attitude instead made a seasoned flirt like me blush furiously, and I ended up running away in embarrassment. How could a person change so drastically? It was truly bizarre. If this were the past, Liu Jian would have definitely mocked me, saying,
"Your skin could stand to be a bit thicker."
Upon learning that Liu Jian and I had both moved into Blue Moon Bay, Mrs. Liu planned to arrange for a few live-in maids to come over and take care of our daily lives, but she was rejected by Liu Jian.
"We can manage on our own."
The next morning, just as I went downstairs, I saw Liu Jian making breakfast in the kitchen. This scene gave me quite a shock. I never expected that a young master pampered from childhood would actually have a side that cooks in person. It was indeed as if the sun had risen from the west. The sandwiches and fried eggs made by young Master Liu, but seeing him deliberately trying to hide one of his hands behind his back, I realized what had happened. Without a word, I grabbed his wrist. Sure enough, there was a large, red burn on the back of his hand. My heart tightened instantly. I quickly pulled Liu Jian over to the sink to rinse the burn. "You don't even know how to do this. We should have a housekeeper come tomorrow."
"No need. I'll get the hang of it after a few more tries."
I found it a bit strange. Why was he so against having a housekeeper move in? Liu Jian fell silent for a moment. His voice was firm and certain.
"I only want to live with you."
Looking at young Master Liu's stubborn and determined expression, it was truly a rare sight. Even someone as cold and proud as Liu Jian could have a day where he desperately tries to win back his love. My mood instantly brightened. "Liu Jian, when exactly did you start liking me?" His breath hitched for a moment. He lowered his eyes slightly, his tone filled with a deep sense of sadness.
"I don't know. Anyway, a long time ago, I went to your house to look for you, but your neighbors said you had been taken away by relatives. I'm sorry. I didn't know back then that so much had happened to your family. If only I had noticed sooner, or if I had just asked you, maybe things wouldn't have turned out the way they did."
The way my family ended up is no one's fault. Don't be silly. It had absolutely nothing to do with you. I interrupted Liu Jian and gently caressed his face. This sudden moment of intimacy startled both of us. Liu Jian stared at me without blinking, his deep, dark eyes like a pool of clear spring water. He took my hand and gently kissed it near his lips. An intimate atmosphere began to spread between us. As if possessed, I leaned in and kissed his lips. Liu Jian wrapped his arms around my waist. We began to kiss. How should I describe this feeling? It's like after going through so many twists and turns in life, you run into your youth's handsome and beautiful white moonlight once again. And that white moonlight affectionately tells you that he actually liked you from the very beginning and has been waiting for you all these years. Who could possibly resist that? Well, I certainly couldn't. That very night, he and I stayed up all night in the room, talking from our hearts. Young Master Liu seemed a bit constrained, facing this kind of intimacy, and was somewhat at a loss. Given that his legs are not very convenient right now, I took the initiative to slow down the pace. I finally lived the life I had dreamed of in my youth. That is, spending the nights teasing and flirting with Liu Jian, often teasing him until his eyes grew red and welled up with tears. Such a gentle, sweet, and docile young Master Lu is truly a delight to be with. Though we have only been together for a short time, I have already grown to crave this warm companionship. Unfortunately, some phone calls always come at the most inconvenient times, especially a call from an ex-boyfriend.
So, what did I do?
I, of course, hung up without any hesitation.
I'm sorry, the number you have dialed is powered off.
Then came a string of English.
Rong Ze frowned slightly.
After a moment's thought, he still opened the WeChat interface. The next second, the chat box popped up again with, "You are not his friend yet." He stared at those 2 lines of text and suddenly laughed out of sheer anger. To think he had finally found an excuse for himself today to come to the apartment they rented together. Liang Yinuo had really given him a massive surprise.
Fine. If you have the guts, don't ever add me back.
Rong Ze slammed his foot down hard on the gas pedal. The sports car let out a deafening roar in the late-night alley and sped away, leaving a cloud of dust behind. When his mother brought up the marriage alliance with the Gu family again, Rong Ze thought about how Liang Yinuo had blocked and deleted him and felt a heavy weight in his chest.
No one is indispensable.
After that, his blind date with Gu Xinro went very smoothly. The Gu family was an old money clan in Shanghai, and the 2 families were old family friends, though they had drifted apart somewhat in recent years. Gu Xinro was gentle and lovely, with a well-proportioned figure and a sweet, delicate voice, the quintessential sweet girl. That day, while he was at the mall with Gu Xinro, she took a liking to a bracelet. Without a second thought, he swiped his card. Only after paying did it suddenly hit him. In the nearly 2 years he had been with Liang Yinuo, he seemed to have never bought her any gifts, because his persona of a poor guy had been crafted too successfully. Liang Yinuo never let him buy her anything, and even monitored every penny he spent. Many times, Rong Ze wanted to spend money to pamper his girlfriend. He wanted to buy Liang Yinuo bags, necklaces, and clothes, and take her on trips abroad. He wanted to buy a spacious apartment so they could live more comfortably. He wanted to replace the air conditioner so their rental wouldn't be so hot on summer nights. But he couldn't do any of that, because if he did, Liang Yinuo would definitely ask where the money came from. He wouldn't be able to explain, which would inevitably arouse her suspicion. So he had to let it go. When they first met, Rong Ze was still a sophomore in college, while Liang Yinuo was a junior, working part-time at a coffee shop. At their first meeting, he was completely captivated by her charming, sweet smile. His mind buzzed with only one thought. He absolutely had to get to know her. Coincidentally, there was a hiring sign outside the coffee shop, so Rong Ze applied for the job without a second thought. The interview went smoothly, and not long after he started working, Rong Ze soon discovered that the manager of the coffee shop was also pursuing Liang Yinuo. Men are always good at sizing up the competition. After sensing Rong Ze's intentions, the manager began to target him.
Later, Rong Ze gradually noticed
that every time the manager targeted him, Liang Yinuo would stand by his side. Perhaps women naturally tend to side with the underdog, and so Rong Ze gradually used this to win Liang Yinuo's sympathy. The manager was half dead with anger, but the more he targeted Rong Ze, the closer Liang Yinuo actually got to him.
just like that.
With the manager's perfect assist, Rong Ze successfully won the goddess over. But because of this, Liang Yinuo had always believed he was a thoroughly poor boy. Once the first lie is told, it indeed takes countless more lies to cover it up. After they started dating, Liang Yinuo's management of money was stretched to the absolute limit. Every single penny spent had to be carefully calculated. Rent, water, electricity. Every expense was pinched and scraped, as if she wished she could stretch $1 into 5. When she learned that he had found a decent internship, Liang Yinuo finally splurged for once. Big companies care most about personal image. You must never let your colleagues look down on you, or dislike you just because you dress too poorly. Originally, even these items carefully selected by Liang Yinuo might not have been to Rong Ze's liking, but at the thought that they were bought by Liang Yinuo, Rong Ze felt they weren't so bad after all. Rong Ze's thoughts drifted far away, and it wasn't until Gu Xinro called him that he barely snapped back to reality. For some reason, he suddenly felt a strong urge to find Liang Yinuo and confess everything to her. He should bring Liang Yinuo to meet his mother. His mother would like her. Maybe, maybe not. Liang Yinuo was good-looking and had a great personality.
But
even if his mother agreed. What about his father?
Sigh.
Every single step would be a struggle. On Friday, Gu Xinro came to visit the Rong family. She overheard Rong's mother mentioning that she loved lychees.
Oh, you like lychees, Auntie? Why don't we go pick some in Shanghai this weekend? My cousin's orchard has a bumper harvest of lychees this year. They can't even pick them all.
Upon hearing this, without waiting for her son to speak, Rong's mother immediately agreed on his behalf. Rong Ze was quite speechless. He knew both families were trying their best to push for his marriage to Gu Xinro, but to be honest, he hadn't made up his mind at all about whether he actually wanted to take things further with Gu Xinro. After all, he and Liang Yinuo had only just broken up, and he was in no mood to think about marriage right now. He even subconsciously resisted being alone with Gu Xinro. Just then, Chen Yanzhou called him.
Rong Ze, what are your plans for the weekend? I heard you're going to Shanghai. Mind if I tag along?
Rong Ze thought about it and asked,
I have some friends who want to come along too. Is that okay?
Sure. The more the merrier. It's more fun with a crowd. Their group had assumed Gu Xinro's cousin's family lived in the countryside and owned a lychee orchard on a hill, with a hill full of lychee trees.
We should be almost there, right?
It's probably just those lychee trees on the hill behind some village. But as the car drove into the Shanghai city limits, passed through 2 heavily guarded security gates, and arrived at a private estate, then passed by a golf course and a natural lake, the group finally realized. Eventually, the vehicle stopped in front of a British-style castle. This was the famous Blue Moon Bay. We were supposed to greet the hosts first, but my cousin and his fiance aren't home right now. Let's go straight to the back hill, passing by a horse ranch.
Sister-in-law, does your cousin have a sister? I'm totally down to marry into the family.
Zhou Jinyu teased.
You're dreaming, kid.
Are you crazy? You guys, what are you blabbering about? Who is your sister-in-law? Has Rong Ze even acknowledged her?
Everyone knew how she felt about Rong Ze, so they remained silent. Halfway through picking lychees, Gu Xinro received a phone call. It seemed her cousin had returned. Out of politeness, the group felt it would be better to go and greet the host first, so they headed back. Just as they reached the lakeside, they spotted a black SUV. After the car came to a stop, the driver opened the rear door. Everyone was slightly surprised. The man in the wheelchair looked very young, roughly around their age. I wonder what happened that caused his mobility issues. Then, a woman in a long dress stepped out from the back seat. Her hair was slightly tousled by the wind. The woman went to push the wheelchair. After pushing it for a short distance, she stopped again. The man took her hand, and the woman knelt down, whispering something to him. She was clearly acting cute and affectionate. Then, the two of them began to kiss. The scene was incredibly sweet. Caught completely off guard, the group was forced to witness this display of affection. My cousin and his fiance are getting engaged soon. They are lovey-dovey every day. You'll get used to it. A moment later, the young couple finally finished kissing. Only then did everyone dare to approach. Gu Xinro began to introduce both sides. The woman opposite tucked her hair behind her ear, revealing a tiny, palm-sized face. Her features were delicate, and she was as beautiful as a painting. However, Rong Ze, who had been calm and composed just a second ago, suddenly turned pale upon seeing her face clearly. He stared intently at the woman opposite him, his face looking as cold as ice. And Chen Yan and Zhou Jingyu beside him looked even more horrified. Their astonished expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. When I saw Rong Ze, I was also a bit dazed. What is going on? Why is he here? This is my cousin, Lu Jiayan, and his fiancée, Liang Yinuo. This is Rong Ze and a few of his close friends. I realized belatedly that Rong Ze was Gu Xinro's arranged marriage partner. This is way too much of a coincidence. Talk about terrible luck.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for making the trip, driving all the way from the city center. It's quite a long drive.
Hello, Mr. Liu. My name is Lin Yen. I'm Shinro's friend.
Hello, Mr. Liu. My name is Zhou Jingyu. I'm Rong Ze's friend.
Only Rong Ze stood frozen in place, staring intently at me. After exchanging greetings,
Is it too hot out here? Shall we head inside?
Good. This kind of situation was quite an awkward ordeal for me. I really didn't know how to handle it for the moment, so I could only escape first. I pushed Lu Jiayan into the living room.
Do you know him?
Is this guy's vision really that sharp? It was probably impossible to hide it anyway. I could only brace myself and honestly admit it. He's my ex-boyfriend. Lu Jiayan nodded, showing an expression that didn't seem surprised at all. Are you angry?
I'm sorry.
I didn't know he would be here either. Lu Jiayan sighed, held my hand, and said in a helpless tone,
I'm not that petty. I'm just worried that you might mind.
Mind what?
Because I'm in a wheelchair.
I leaned forward and covered Lu Jian's mouth. The two of us were very close, our breaths within inches of each other. What are you thinking about? You are my white moonlight. No one can ever replace your place in my heart. His lips parted slightly, bringing a ticklish sensation to the palm of my hand. Is that so? Didn't you know? Lu Jian chuckled softly, his eyes curving up.
Actually, you are my white moonlight dot, the incomparable one I've been thinking about for years.
You're so sweet-tongued. Tonight, I'll reward you with 100 candies. Lu Jian thought seriously for a moment.
That's too many. Would 4 be enough?
Deal.
I knew Rong Ze would definitely want to argue with me, but I didn't expect him to be so bold as to take advantage of everyone's inattention and go straight to the second floor to corner me. His eyes were dark and gloomy.
Liang Yinuo, don't you think you owe me an explanation?
I found it somewhat amusing. An explanation? We've already broken up.
2 months. We only broke up 2 months ago.
Don't worry. I've only been dating my boyfriend for a month and a half. I never did anything to betray you. Rong Ze spoke almost through gritted teeth.
Am I supposed to praise you? Moving on to a new relationship so quickly.
How is that rushed? Wasn't there a half-month gap in between?
Were you in such a hurry to choose him? Have you seriously considered how you'll get along and the reality of the future?
I had originally thought we could part on good terms without needing to turn hostile. But since he spoke so rudely, you don't need to worry. We are very compatible.
Rong Ze's pupils shrank instantly.
His face turning deathly pale. After a long silence, taking advantage of the noise downstairs, he asked me, looking utterly lost.
Have you and he already slept together?
That is none of your business. Don't forget about it. We have already broken up, and my boyfriend and I are getting engaged soon. This is the last time I will speak with you alone. I hope you understand, and also know when to stop. Downstairs, the crowd recalled the scene from earlier, each sighing with emotion.
Liang Yinuo is truly something. Just broke up with Rong Ze and immediately landed the heir of the Lu group.
How does that saying go? Never underestimate a beautiful girl. Who knows what kind of man she will meet the next day. It really is the truth.
Well, she had to have the capability to pull it off.
Others said Liang Yinuo was shrewd and practical, always just wanting to live a stable life and unwilling to endure hardships.
Zhou Jinyu glanced at that person.
When Liang Yinuo was with Rong Ze, she never once thought about living an easy life. She isn't someone who craves comfort. She was always saving money, working hard, and spending all the money she earned on him. She was willing to give everything. I don't know how that kid Rong Ze got so lucky to meet such a sincere and pure girl.
When he met Liang Yinuo that day, Zhou Jinyu had actually felt a spark of interest too. Anyway, she and Rong Ze had already broken up, so it wouldn't really count as stealing his brother's girl. If he could pursue Liang Yinuo, even if Rong Ze felt uncomfortable about it, he would just have to accept it. If nothing else, Liang Yinuo was truly exactly his type. That face with bright eyes and white teeth, and skin as fair as porcelain, could easily outshine a whole bunch of female celebrities even without makeup. Her figure was great too, perfectly proportioned, neither too thin nor too plump. He really couldn't understand what Rong Ze was thinking. With such a gentle and sincere lover, he was still obsessed with the conventional marriage of convenience.
It was truly baffling.
It was just a pity that Liang Yinuo had already left him no chance at all. Zhou Jinyu had originally thought there was plenty of time to take things slow, but he didn't expect that girl to be taken so quickly.
What is she so proud of? Isn't she just relying on others everywhere for support?
Someone cleared their throat softly, trying to warn her.
Always thinking of depending on other people to get things done.
It seems this Miss Jiang has a very strong prejudice against me. Jiang On Yu didn't expect to be overheard by me directly. Her eyes froze slightly. A moment later, she lifted her chin, wearing a look that said, "What can you do to me?"
I was only speaking the truth.
This was already the second time I had heard her making inappropriate remarks about me. I wasn't about to just let it slide. Miss Jiang, as a woman yourself, speaking with such bitterness is truly uncalled for. She was stunned for a moment, not expecting me to talk back.
What did you say?
Or is it that you've always had someone else on your mind? Your heart has always belonged elsewhere, yet you've never gotten what you wanted. If you've already sorted out your past entanglements, you might as well follow your heart and move forward bravely. Don't let the opportunity right in front of you slip away.
Who do you think you are to treat me like this?
I don't have any special status, except that Blue Moon Bay, where you are currently standing, belongs to me. As the owner of this place, you are not welcome here. Please leave immediately.
Blue Moon Bay? Are you kidding me? This clearly belongs to the Liu family.
Are you referring to my fiance, Liu Jian? He has already transferred Blue Moon Bay to me as a betrothal gift. I'll say it one more time. As the owner of this house, you are absolutely not welcome. I'm giving you 3 minutes to get out of here. The group returned to Haicheng. These pampered trust fund kids had never experienced such humiliation, being kicked out right to their faces. However, none of them lost as much face as Jiang Anyu and Rong Ze. One was scolded to her face, while the other was utterly humiliated by his ex-girlfriend. At the moment of departure, Chen Yanzhou couldn't bear to watch any longer and spoke up to comfort him. Look on the bright side.
Look on the bright side. Anyway, you and Liang Yinuo have already broken up.
Rong Ze didn't respond, seeing his dark, stormy expression. Chen Yanzhou didn't dare to say any more. Anyone with eyes could see that young Master Rong was probably regretting it. In fact, Rong Ze did indeed regret it. He had never doubted before that Liang Yinuo loved him, and loved him to death, because he was the one who actively initiated the breakup. He had felt guilty for 2 whole months, and it was precisely during these 2 months that he saw his own heart clearly. Rong Ze knew very well that he liked Liang Yinuo. He also absolutely could not accept the arranged marriage with the Gu family, just as he was secretly thinking
About how to convince
his parents to accept Liang Yinuo. He saw his girlfriend, who just 2 months ago was still so intimate and deeply in love with him,
kissing another man passionately in the blink of an eye.
That scene was like a sudden clap of thunder, shattering his consciousness. After seeing her face clearly, Rong Ze even self-deceptively fantasized that this person was definitely not his girlfriend, but rather Liang Yinuo's twin sister. Yes, Liang Yinuo must have a twin sister, but in the end, the fantasy was shattered after all. Seeing that his face was really terrible, Chen Yanzhou said,
All right, let's all disperse. Everyone go home.
Before 2 days had passed, Rong Ze asked Gu Xinro out to discuss calling off the engagement between their families. Do you know my cousin's wife? It seemed his behavior that day was indeed too unseemly, as even Gu Xinro had noticed. Rong Ze hesitated for a moment before confessing to her.
Yinuo is my ex-girlfriend.
Gu Xinro covered her mouth in shock, with not a single trace of sadness on her face about the broken engagement, only a burning desire for gossip. How long have you two been broken up?
2 months.
You're trying to win her back. And my cousin is also trying to win her back. However, his chances of winning are much higher than yours.
What do you mean?
Liang Yinuo and my cousin, Liu Jian, were classmates in elementary and middle school. Back when they were in school, she chased after my cousin for a very long time, but my cousin never agreed. Later, something happened to the Liang family, and she was adopted by relatives and transferred schools. My cousin searched for her for many years, and only got news of her recently. As soon as they finished their blind date, they set the date for their engagement. Think about it. My cousin searched for Yinuo for nearly 10 years. How could he possibly let her go so easily? That's why I said, your chances of winning Liang Yinuo back are very slim. Practically zero.
No, it won't be. She loves me. It's been almost 2 years. No matter what, I will never give up on Liang Yinuo.
What do you plan to do? I bet it's hard for you to even see my cousin's fiance right now.
Indeed. WeChat and all other social media platforms. I've been blocked by her on all of them. She even changed her phone number.
How about I help you?
How can you help me?
Help you ask her out.
Why would you want to help me?
Gu Xinro blinked her eyes. What could she say? She was purely in it for the gossip. 2 men desperately trying to win back the same woman at the same time. This was far more exciting than reading any online web novel. Of course, since you intend to call off the engagement, our families can't become in-laws, so we can only do business. With just a little effort, I can make young Master Rong owe me a favor. Why not? Moreover, Gu Xinro believed that Liang Yinuo would never choose Rong Ze anyway. Therefore, she was willing to do him this small favor on the side. In the evening, Gu Xinro sent a message asking me to go shopping tomorrow. After thinking for a moment, I agreed.
Who sent the message?
Xinro. She asked me to go shopping at the mall tomorrow.
I'll go with you.
No need, right? It's just 2 girls shopping. Liu Jian didn't say anything else. After a long while, I finally realized something was wrong.
On what grounds? On what grounds won't you let me accompany you?
Because I need to buy underwear. With a big man like you standing next to me, I'll feel embarrassed.
I can help you choose.
Then there won't be any surprise when I wear it, because you would have already seen them. This point is extremely important to me.
Don't shop for too long. I will call you. And you're not allowed to get annoyed.
Of course.
Ignore any men who try to strike up a conversation with you.
Okay.
You are not allowed to go see your ex-boyfriend, nor are you allowed to answer his calls. If you go back to him, it will be very hard for me to accept.
But In the end, I still couldn't manage to do it because I didn't know where Rong Ze suddenly popped out from either. Cousin-in-law, he begged me to let you two meet. I think it's better if you make things clear to him so he can give up completely. Gu Shinro whispered in my ear. So it was this girl. I had a speechless look on my face. Take your time chatting. I'll be back in a bit.
Yinuo.
I frowned. Without a shred of patience left. I already made it very clear to you last time. I don't wish for us to meet alone again.
I know, but I can't do it. Can you forgive me? Can we just pretend nothing happened over these past 2 months? Okay?
Sometimes I really think men are quite childish. Pretend nothing happened? Is that even possible? Forgive you? For which thing? Rong Ze's expression froze, and a flash of annoyance crossed his face.
For everything. I shouldn't have lied to you. My dad wasn't hospitalized, and we aren't as poor as you thought.
You're being far too modest. I know. How could someone who can marry into Gu Shinro's family possibly be poor? Fine. I forgive you. Let's just leave it at that.
Yinuo, can you come to a place with me? Please, I beg you.
If I go with you, will you promise never to bother me again?
If you still haven't changed your mind by then, I can promise you that.
Only when I saw the words Rong Garden did I realize where Rong Ze had brought me. It was truly unexpected. Rong Ze got out of the car and opened the passenger door for me.
I'm sorry, Yinuo. I lied to you before. I'm actually from Haicheng, and this is my home. Today, I will confess everything to my parents. You are my actual girlfriend. We've been dating for almost 2 years. I won't marry Gu Shinro because the one I've always loved is you.
Take me back.
Yinuo, please. Get out of the car with me, okay?
Huh. I was truly left speechless by him, leaning back against the seat with my arms crossed. Tell me then, why on earth should I choose you? Are you also willing to hand Rong Garden over to me? There is a saying that I now find quite true. A person's true feelings are often hidden in what they are willing to give. I was with you for nearly 2 years, never spent a single penny of yours, and always took the initiative to give a lot. Come to think of it, you didn't really put much heart into me either. When I asked you to go back to Hucheng with me before, I wanted to introduce you to my aunt. You were very smart. You knew that by bringing you back with me, it was to meet my family, so you rejected me. You said you wanted to break up. Okay, I agree. We are all adults. Do you think this is some kind of child's play? With every word I spoke, Rong Ze's face grew a shade darker.
I just hadn't thought it through back then. You shouldn't dismiss our entire past based on just that. Yinuo, I'm willing to do my best to make it up to you.
No need. The best compensation you can give me now is to stay far away from me and stop disturbing my life with my boyfriend.
That's absolutely impossible. I definitely can't do that.
That day in the private room, I heard everything. He didn't react immediately. What private room? The private room at Club 01. I was there that day too, because you didn't want to go back to Hucheng with me. You asked your best friends to help you make up excuses to break up with me. You also said that no one could ever bear your children, except for your actual wife. And that included me. I will not choose someone who only stands by and watches coldly when I am being criticized by others. When Jiang and Ru mocked and ridiculed me, I thought you would stand up and defend me, but you remained silent the entire time. From that moment on, it was completely over between us. There is no longer any possibility in the future. Rong Ze looked at me. His face was deathly pale. I figured he probably wouldn't bother me anymore. By the time we got married, Lu Jiayan's legs had almost fully recovered, and he didn't need a wheelchair at all. We didn't have an engagement ceremony. We just went straight to getting married. When Mom finally finished nagging, I let out a sigh of relief. Sister Yinuo, this is a wedding gift someone sent you. I set it aside, having absolutely no desire to even open it. A moment later, my phone received a notification followed by a text message. I'm sorry. Happy wedding. Surprised, I opened the box. It was a diamond necklace. It looked somewhat familiar to me, and I quickly recalled what it was. This was the incredibly expensive necklace that Rong Ze and I had seen at a counter while shopping a year ago. He said back then that he would buy it for me, but I just thought he was talking in his sleep. If, after our breakup, I had ever harbored any resentment and
hatred toward Rong Ze, then
the moment I saw this necklace, even that tiny bit of lingering unpleasantness vanished. In my eyes, he had become an extremely generous and responsible ex. The wedding finally began. Looking at the handsome Lu Jiayan standing opposite me, a wave of warmth welled up in my heart. Well, the new chapter of my life is about to begin.